Good afternoon, everyone. Committee members and other parties of interest, the evaluation committee meeting for RFP 2424580, the master developer for the redevelopment of the site surrounding the Museum of Science and Industry, will be held in parts by means of communications media technology. Active participation will be for committee members and advisors only, and provisions have been made for any member of the public desiring to have access to view the meeting. Be advised that this meeting is being recorded and the meeting has been publicly noticed. Also be advised that the cone of silence is still in effect until a notice of intent to recommend award is posted and the 5-day protest period ends. All questions, comments must be directed to my attention by way of the bonfire site that we use to advertise our solicitation. My name is Sybil Tucker. I'm the buyer for this project. And at this time, I will ask each committee member to introduce themselves for the record, and we're going to begin with the committee chairperson.
Okay, I'm John Muller, Committee Chair, Director for Facilities and Real Estate for Hillsborough County.
Good afternoon, everyone. Javier Marin, City of Tampa Economic Opportunity.
Good afternoon, Sarah Kafer with Plan Hillsborough.
Good afternoon, Megan Nixon with Engineering and Operations, Public Works.
Good afternoon, Adam Gormley, the Director for the Development Services Department for Hillsborough County.
Good afternoon, Yaksha Petrovich, Director of Economic Development Department, Hillsborough County.
Good afternoon, Jim Hudak, the Director of the Capital Programs Department, Hillsborough County.
And just watching, Scott Stromer, Director of Procurement for Hillsborough County.
Okay, thank you all. I do want to make mention that Javier Marin is an advisor to the committee, whereas everyone else is a national committee member except for Scott Stromer. So we received 2 proposals, one from Alliant Partners Development and the other from RGA Designs, LLC, in response to this solicitation. The committee was tasked with reviewing and evaluating the proposals based on the information provided in their proposal as it correlates to the requirements and evaluation criteria that was set forth in the solicitation document, and not any prior experience with the firms. This meeting provides the committee an opportunity to evaluate the proposal by way of discussion and possible scoring, or the committee has the option to request interviews with the proposers and defer scoring until after the interviews are completed. The committee will decide as a group to either discuss and score the proposals in this meeting or request interviews and defer the score. The proposals and or interviews will be scored by consensus by the committee members only. The advisors will not participate in scoring, but will be able to advise the committee as requested by the members. The committee will be evaluating the proposals based on the following criteria. Criteria 1, the respondents' qualifications and relevant experience for a possibility of 35 points. The approach and understanding the development proposal for a possibility of 35 points. The financial capability and the financial plan for a possibility of 30 points. And there's an option for DMDWBE bonus points that was actually scored by our Economic Development Department, and I will provide those scores at the appointed time. So there was a possibility for the proposal, or is a possibility for the proposers to receive a maximum of 105 points. So the evaluation committee chairperson will be leading the discussion as far as the direction that the committee would like to go in as far as scoring and or interviews. So at this time, Scott, did you want to add anything before we proceed?
Yeah, just real quick. So I just remind everybody the cone of silence that, you not talk to any of the vendors if you do have questions, and you'll have those discussions here. If there's more information you want from the vendors, it's part either through the interviews and in preparation for those interviews, you'll let us know. We'll get that information for you and certainly get them prepared. Our intent is to get them sent a letter Monday, kind of give them the rules, the times, what we're looking for, what you need, what you're expecting their presentations to be. Typically presentations will really be, these are a little unique, but typically they're about 15 minutes just to give why they should be selected. And then you'll have the balance of usually that hour to really start to follow up and ask questions and all of that. So you'll have that opportunity. You can decide how much time you want to do.
How much time do we have for that meeting, Ken?
It's, what do you have scheduled
An
now?
hour.
An hour total?
No, well, 3 hours total would be
Okay.
an hour for each proposer and then
Okay,
an hour for the discussion and scoring at the end.
My recommendation is that you don't score here. You have two proposals. There's no reason to score it. Defer it, have your discussions here. What Sybil's gonna be looking for is just really what direction do you have for her? What do we need to communicate to these vendors just to get them prepared? What gaps do you see in the information that you need to fill? So that'd be that part of it. But again, anything you need for the vendors is filtered through us, specifically through Sybil. And then she'll communicate with those vendors, and that is so there's no undue influence or anything like that. Conflict of interest, just to remind you on that, you're familiar with the firms now, you've seen their packages, and sort of make sure that no one here has any conflicts of interest. You didn't apply for any jobs there, they didn't offer you any jobs. You haven't worked with them in the past, there's nothing there, you don't have any financial benefit. I think we're clear there, we had that discussion early on, but I just want to reiterate that for the record. Sunshine law, your discussions, your deliberations can only happen in a publicly noticed meeting. So it's not unlike the Board of County Commissioners. You can only have those discussions here. When you leave this room, you may not discuss with each other, those that are on the committee. You may not discuss anything about this. You can have your normal conversations about other stuff. You just can't discuss this. So just to remind you of that. Sybil's gone over the criteria. This package included financials. In some form. It's kind of a unique project. Not knowing exactly what the project's going to be, it's difficult to pull those financials together. So, but you do have those. Those are privileged information. They are exempt from public inspection. So you have them. You are not to share those. So you've got them, but if anybody asks for them, you are not to provide those. And if somebody does request those, please let Sybil know and we can navigate that. But that is something we do not release to the public. So, and even OMB's analysis of those financials, I would also couch those as also privileged because they're kind of giving you that. So you have that information there. And again, not to be shared with the public or anybody else. And if we get a public records request, it's really, certainly to protect the proposers. We're not going to share that information as a matter of our public records because it is exempt from it. Your interviews you have time scheduled, like Sybil said, on Monday the 6th for the 3 hours. The idea will be to have your interviews, have those discussions, and hopefully you maybe get to a scoring at that point. That's not to say that that's the only time you have. If you need more time, you will get more time. If we need to come to another day, you need to have a day just to yourselves, to have a little bit of family time to kind of talk through this after those. You want to sleep on it, it's you are going to dictate that, whatever time you need. It's important the decision be right. So with that, that's all I wanted to share with you. So
does anyone disagree? What I'd suggest is today, it's gonna be a very short meeting, saying that for the benefit of the people out there. I really would like us to hear the presentations. I'm glad we scheduled 3 hours. I don't want to preempt any discussion. I'm assuming, just like myself, everybody here has read the documents. So hold that. Sybil covered the consensus scoring, which I wanted to note, and Scott covered the other point about the financial information being privileged information. So I just want to make sure, Scott, when we get to that point of the discussion, which is in the sunshine, can you elaborate a little bit when we talk about the financial portion?
I mean, you make general statements, I think. I mean, just on what your impression is. I wouldn't just start, reciting the numbers and all of that.
Okay.
You also have, I believe, Dr. Eisenberg had some points.
Yes, I'm gonna talk
You also
about
have
that.
those as well for
Okay.
as an advisor.
Okay, so if everyone's in agreement on that. Do I have anybody doesn't? Okay, all right, that's fine. So we will, what I'd like to give to the proposers some suggestions here. You guys can weigh in on these. So I think about a 20 to 20 minute plus or minus presentation. If you feel you need 25, certainly please don't go an hour because I do want to leave time after each proposer to have our questions and answers to them. Okay. So I would give that guidance to them in terms of preparing for a week from Monday. So you also, our real estate staff did, just made some calls on the background checks. And there was nothing alarming or anything like that came out, but I would offer that I think it might be helpful as part of their presentation to choose at least one. Certainly no more than two, but one or two prior experience, recent, go into it a little bit, spend at least 5 minutes on something like this. Tell us your track record, highlight one of the references you brought in, I think would be helpful for the team. I also want to mention, I appreciate very much respect USF's criteria. However, I'm going to remind us here as this evaluation committee that, and Sybil talked about the ranking score here, in terms of consensus scoring, but I'm going to actually read this. I'm going to read straight from the RFP. It's for the benefit of everyone in the room and the proposers. It is section 3.3.1. Final ranking of proposals by the board shall be made with consideration of the following factors. This is the Board of County Commissioners. Okay, when it says board. Our recommendation, that's a portion of it. Okay, that's just one portion of it. Number two, that the proposed project best serves the county's public purpose and aligns with the vision that was stated in this RFP. C, the proposed project best meets the county's annual capital improvement or other development policies, plans, goals, or objectives. D, the proposed project is economically feasible and the highest and best use of county resources while maximizing tax generation for the county. So we'll be looking for those three, because obviously when we recommend to the board, we have to take that into consideration. And then lastly, it states other factors which best serve the highest public interest as determined by the Board of County Commissioners. So we may get a recommendation, or we may get stakeholders who say, we think this ought to be in here, but keep in mind that the board in their previous meetings kind of told us what they're looking for in this RFP, and it's our job to rank them and also opine on that. Anything else? Sybil's got, okay, if not, the last thing I'd mention is would be helpful also in the proposal, saw the conceptual drawings. I think we did ask for a programmatic that went along with that. If it was in there and I missed it, I apologize. Both proposers would buy a programmatic. It usually is some sort of breakdown of the square foot and the uses that describes it a little bit more in detail. It may have been in the narrative, but putting it together in one page probably could be helpful as well. MOSI, in the RFP, there was a fair amount devoted to the work the county did to transition MOSI to a 7-acre site, and then what might happen with the rest of the MOSI. I've seen it addressed. Trust me, both proposals I think had, so we talked about parking and needs for MOSI. Some of them, though, I'm not sure. I just want them to be able, when the briefing is maybe go a little bit more on the MOSI footprint. I don't want MOSI by any means to dominate the presentation because it's just a piece. I just would like them to just clarify what land that in their vision they had, if it aligned with what we had put in the RFP, because we're certainly open if it didn't, if somebody had a better idea of what we had. So I think that would have been helpful as well. And I think that's it. That's all I have. Anybody on the committee have anything else?
Can I just clarify?
Sure.
So at 15, I would recommend the 15 minutes maybe for that initial presentation.
Yep.
And then you have 45 minutes balance to give the time. If you need a little bit more time, if it bleeds over, that's fine. So what you're looking for is for them to really kind of elaborate on one or two recent projects that are the most similar to this.
I'll put it in priority one. First one is just the opportunity to elaborate on the criteria. The criteria
Okay, so you want
that the board's about. That is by far the first thing I'm looking for.
In that section.
That was section 3.
3.3.1.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it would be helpful to take the proposal and address it and say, hey, because ultimately that's what we're trying to opine on.
how it meets those,
Mhm.
how it meets the
Yeah.
board goals, okay, and then you want a programming of the space.
I think as part of that discussion, they both have conceptuals in there. They could probably put one slide together that broke down, did the programmatic square footage of their conceptual. And then, yes, and then the first one you mentioned was at least pick one of the examples and go into it for a few minutes.
Okay.
On recent, what was demonstrated, so in similar size, scope and complexity.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, good, thank you.
And then we will, because we need to reserve the last hour for sure, if not for our own, talking, ranking and everything. So,
One thing I'll mention on that, and I got to do it in my spiel, so I apologize. So the committee will have to determine how you want to score this. Do you want to do it individually and do the math, or you want to do it through consensus? I highly recommend that you do it through consensus. This is one of those, it's a complex project, and as a group, you can decide. And again, you've got the maximum 105 points, you got the different criteria with the different weights that are there. But I would recommend you just do it as consensus. Remember that if you do take personal notes, if you share those personal notes with any committee members, those are. So yeah, so no looking at Yox's paper, Adam. Yox's covers his paper. So as soon as you share those, it's public record. So those are your notes for the discussion of consensus. So I would recommend that, but you'll have to make that
So
decision.
I'm gonna second what you said, having done a few of these, I think consensus is the best. In other words, and you can, in your preparations, come in with your thoughts and everything, but at the end of the day, you want to hear what each of us says and why they came to that point, and we'll come to a consensus on the score. Anybody got any other thoughts? Okay, all right, we'll do that.
No, I'm done. I'm sorry.
I'm
Thank
done.
you.
I don't have
Appreciate
anything
your patience.
else. Oh, good.
Have anything else?
If there's one thing I just could ask for when, and I think it falls in what you said, is especially to elaborate on the TOD and transit.
Okay.
That was one piece that I certainly would have some questions on if it's not elaborated on further in the presentation, as well as some of the roles and responsibilities, if there could be some clarity on that.
That got you on the track. So when they're presenting, you'd like to see them spend at least a portion of it clarifying on the, because obviously you're with the transportation, on the transportation. Yeah, because I actually reread, I think the exact words were in the RFP were ensuring that no matter what went on the site, it did not preclude the future ability, if not the present ability for the site to be integrated into the transportation, right?
It did specifically mention the Fowler Avenue corridor.
Yes.
As well, and that's something that, if possible, would be great to see a little bit more.
Okay, well, that's noted.
So just say that again, Sarah, with, you want them to elaborate just on that transportation component of how they're gonna achieve that?
Yeah, I'd like to see, as part of the discussion, I think that falls in the line of the site plan discussion, but how is it accommodating of TOD and transit, especially with what was mentioned in the RFP that's related about Fowler Avenue?
I'm looking for, do you have it highlighted in the RFP? What section is it? That will be most likely.
What's TOD stand for? Just like,
Development.
I was like, we got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Put it in my notes on the RFP. So in section 2.3.4, we say the county intends to support the establishment of future transit on the site and along Fowler Avenue. Coordination with the Planning Commission, the Hillsborough Transportation Planning Organization, and the Florida Department of Transportation will be necessary to ensure the redevelopment does not preclude the ability to support future transit. And so I think one of the keys for me there is especially the and along Fowler Avenue piece.
Okay. That was
2.3.4.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, thank
And
you.
then I didn't understand 100% what you meant about the organizational roles.
Yeah, so I think there one thing that would be helpful for me, and, you know, I don't know if others found this as well, is just to better understand a little bit of who's doing what and the experience and the example perhaps of like who's involved. So we understand a little bit about their experience.
Okay, so their organization, so this is their team?
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, a little bit, because they're under organizational structures for both of them, which can be done right up front.
Yes.
And we'll adjust the time. There's some things here, so 15 minutes may not be enough, so we'll make sure there's enough time for that.
Yeah, I'm fine. It's like, I literally in my mind are an hour, and then an hour for us. So I want them, this is their opportunity, so I don't want to, cut them short, but I suspect we'll have a lot of questions and answers. So, you're going 20, 25 minutes. If you start to do a presentation that's 40, you're going to cut yourself short on the Q&A.
And ideally, if we frame this right and get these topics, it may negate some of your questions. So it'll probably work out in the end. So I appreciate you putting a lot of thought into this. So this will be very helpful for me.
Can Javier speak?
Yeah, of course.
From the perspective of the city of Tampa, some of these may be relevant. The first one is kind of informational. So the city has made a choice on Fire Station 24, and it's actually going to be on White Way between 48th and 50th, which is just south of that site.
Okay.
So it may be relevant to the conversation.
Was that White? What was the street?
White Way.
White Way,
White Way between
48th, 50th,
between 48th and 50th, and that'll be City Fire Station 24?
24.
Okay.
What's the timing on it? No.
The site was just chosen, so it's going to be a couple of years. To us, I guess it's important to mention the Greco softball complex and park.
Yes.
We want to make sure that, that mobility and a continued buffer is there. Important to point out that it's a very active, so lightning and illumination lead off is huge at night. So that may be a consideration.
The softball complex, which it's right at the, everybody familiar with that? It's kind of at the MOSI property. It's where you have the lowlands, wetlands area, and then right behind that is Greco's Park.
And the two roads were White Way and what was the other one?
No, it's White Way between 48 and 50.
For the fire station and the park, and again, of course, access, 113th and 48th are the roads that allow access to the park. So we want to make sure that.
So the question is, with these areas, how do they see this? How would that impact?
They impact there.
Okay, gotcha.
And of course, if they're going to have residential north of the park, then, is there going to be an impact on the residents based on that lighting? And my last point, and of course, a lot of this is going to be addressed through the development coordination process, but the trees are really important to us. Tree retention is critical to the city of Tampa.
So on the Greco Park, that I just want to make sure that's a softball complex that's used heavily at night then?
Heavy.
Okay, yes, yeah, okay. But yeah, the wooded area is also the wetland area. Can't use it, so, okay.
So I have.
So, from my perspective for economic development, I would like to see a little more fleshed out, what the vision of economic impact for these is, what potentially kind of job mix industries. I know there's some references to retail and office, but what kind of jobs are they envisioning being in there? I think there's some references to residential units, but I'm also kind of curious to know exactly how many residential units they're thinking of, counted the buildings and all that, but that kind of thing, some of that square footage that you were talking about, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think,
The industry kind of, maybe a little more specific industry mix what they're thinking of.
yeah, I think from the echo your comment, it would be helpful to have the program. So again, going back to what the RFP says, the jobs were absolutely something I believe that was discussed. I'd have to go back to the board minutes to look. But certainly, creation of that, and Laura was put in here, so, that's the program would help, and if they elaborate on that, is what you're asking for, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, the-
catch that, Scott?
Yeah, so the economic impact kind of input output.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And, another thing too, so this isn't the end all be all. These are kind of the large topics. We'll let them know. So when you have interviews, something may pop up. You drive home tonight. If you do think of something over the weekend, just get a hold of Sybil, let her know. So you know what, I'd like to know more about this. So don't hesitate. Okay, good. Jim, do you have anything?
Good, Adam?
Yeah, covered with, there's that fleshing out some of the presentations and what sustainable development. Good.
Good,
Yes.
okay.
Do I need to mention that?
I kind of did have a question. It's like,
Okay.
yeah, there was talking about that being a, big industry, but I didn't quite exactly follow what they meant by sustainable development being a big business. So,
So you just want to know more, what do they mean by that?
Yeah.
What-
Yeah.
what-
I mean, when I hear sustainable development, I think of like attributes of it, but it almost seemed like it was a development type of way.
Yeah, they can give up the LEE, is there LEED, like certified building, is that what they mean, or do they mean some other kind of something?
Yeah, I couldn't hear it, because the reference to, it was a, source had reported it being a, $1 billion industry. Was it like an industry itself, or is it,
Physical construction.
yeah, or is it like something that's an attribute of some other
Yeah.
use?
And that was in one of the proposals?
Yeah, I think that was in, line.
Okay, and so any other questions relative for guiding them on the thing? Again, I would encourage them to just look at the RFP again and also read the marketing brochure that was an attachment, as well as the agenda items that was public record. And you'll see some commonality of terms in there, things we repeated that we were looking for. It's not staff, it's the board of direction. So just please reread those. And then when they present to maybe start there. We're open to a lot of things, but I think that is the starting point on discussion.
So remember, so with all those other documents, ultimately, you're gonna be confined by the RFP document. So it's really that criteria, and you're really, you're confined to that. So if you do go through that, again, please don't feel like you're trapped and that you gotta make a decision at that. You need more time, which I would be surprised if you didn't need more time. And we need to set up, so I think what we may do based on the discussion, we're gonna go ahead and bake in the cake another couple hours, right? Just to have it there for if you need it, so we get on your calendars. Somebody's got some vacations, so we'll work around that, but let's go ahead and get some time set aside for it. At least takes that pressure off of you. You guys will all be much closer by the time you get done with this process. Okay. So we have what we need, I think. We'll draft that letter up. We'll get it again. If we happen to miss something, or if it needs to be couched differently, you're gonna have that opportunity in those interviews to ask those questions. And we can always, and you always have the option too, to ask them a question if they don't have it right, because it's very likely they may not have the answer right there. You may ask something like, let's go back and take a look at that. We'll get that information and bring it back to you at another meeting. Get it to you, then you can discuss that. So you're gonna have that opportunity. It's critical that that it's right. And ultimately, and this would be more for John, Yaksa, and Adam, probably going to the board, the discussion will have to be, are you giving a recommendation, or are you gonna kind of matrix this out and let the board kind of make that decision? So you'll have to have that discussion as well. Because typically on these in the past, sometimes the committee will just kind of present the data, here's what we found. You can kind of rank them. It may be obvious, or you may present it and then the board makes that decision. These are complex proposals, so So that's another discussion you can have if you feel strongly enough that you can make a recommendation. So again, I just don't want you to don't think you have all this pressure on your shoulders. We're gonna work through this together. You're gonna get it. It's not the end all be all. You're gonna have whatever time and we'll come together and figure out what the right course is. So I just want to make sure you understood that. So I'm not gonna get any kind of getting queasy on me and not showing up. I think I'm gonna be sick today. I think it's, that means we have to reschedule and that's a whole other thing, so. Well, you're very kind in your patience. Is there anything else from anybody here? Javier, you got everything that you had?
Thank you, yes.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Sarah, you're good? Megan, you're good? Adam?
Good, yeah.
Yeah, so you're good? Jim, you're
I'm good.
okay, good? Okay, excellent. John?
Yep, let's go.
Okay, any final words?
Yep, just, cone of silence.
Yep. Remember everything I
Stop
said.
recording Here in a second. Just-
We will find you. We will investigate you, so. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, so just to close out, we will be, we already have the interviews scheduled. We will prepare the document to provide to the holders on what we would like for them to present on and be prepared for, as well as the specifics of their time allotted for that. So we will provide that on Monday. We have to prepare it. We'll provide that to the proposers on Monday. So
Let me say this.
Mhm.
So for those that are on the call that are the proposers, we're gonna give you enough time too to present your information as well. So, and the committee does always have this option that if you want, after all your discussions, after your interviews, you sit down that next day or that afternoon, so listen, I think I'd like to see almost a best and final proposal. I kind of want to see a package come back that's kind of the complete after all the discussions, just kind of shore those up. You always have that option as well, rather than trying to piecemeal and you just have this document, because they may appreciate the opportunity to go back and revisit some of the things based on your discussion. So you'll have that opportunity as well. And like I said, they may appreciate that. So that's always an option for you. So it will guide you through that. All right, great, excellent.
So with that, if there's no other comments or questions before we conclude, that will conclude the evaluation meeting for RFP 2424580, the master developer for the redevelopment of the site surrounding the Museum of Science and Industry. Thank you all for your time and attention to this today, and we will be providing that information again on Monday to the proposers. Thank you all and have a good rest of your day and weekend.